In this video, I want to be showing you 20 unique base ideas for Ark Survival Ascended. So anything that constitutes this video is basically just anything that's not a normal base that you would build, like just with foundations and like structures in just a random spot on the map. Most of these are like platform saddle bases and stuff like that, but not really too much to say. There's a lot of these and there's a lot of builds in this video, and you'll see a lot of them. This one's mainly just for like inspiration for if you just want a different kind of base. There'll be all kinds of ones in here for you to see and maybe get some inspiration for your own builds for them. At number 1, we have the Mosasaurus platform base. Now, I've never really built a base on the back of a Mosasaurus before, but it could be a pretty fun idea. There's some problems with it. First thing I want to mention is if you're playing on official, you're not going to be able to make it this big. But if you are playing like on single player where you can change the settings, I'll show the setting that you have to change to make it to where you can build. I did have that setting on for all of this video, so a lot of the creatures will be built bigger than you normally can, because I just thought it would be fun. And for single player and people like servers where you can change that, it is pretty fun. But keep in mind, you can still build on the back of all these in official. You're just not going to be able to build as much. You're going to be kind of limited. And also all these creatures, like, you can only go out a certain length. But this is the Mosasaurus base I built. This one is supposed to be mainly functional. So you've got everything you need. You have storage bins up there. Of course, you can't access them when you're in here. You need to access them when you're in the water, which I'll show you in a second. But, okay, we're getting attacked. But this is the saddle. It's actually super easy. You just jump down, and then you can move around. So, like, the fun thing about a Mosasaurus base is you can just take it straight underwater, which is really fun to do. But, like, so you can actually get out of here, and everything's just going to be underwater. It's not like a submarine or anything where it's like there's going to be air inside your base. You can't make it do that at all, so you kind of just have to live like this. I would recommend having a miner helmet, the heavy miner's helmet on, so you can actually see underwater, because even though the lights are on, you can't see. And there's also that problem too. If it moves without you touching it, you'll just go outside of it completely. And underwater, there's tons of megalodons, so you have a high chance of being attacked. So the Mosasaurus base, it's pretty risky. These ocean bases that I'm going to show, like I said, they're very risky. There's tons of megalodons and stuff that can kill you, so you have to be very protective of your base, because if the Mosasaurus dies, then your whole base dies. But if you get a really strong bred up Mosasaur that's pretty powerful, and you got a saddle with armor, then you should be pretty decent. And you know, you can have fun having an underwater base, even though it is really glitchy and janky with these. They haven't really messed with the ocean platforms in a really long time, so like I said, they are kind of glitchy, but it is kind of fun too, having this whole base underwater like this. And also wanted to show the storage system too. You can swim up here, and that's how I made it to where you access these. You can just kind of get creative with that in your own base on here. At number 2 is the pirate ship base. Now, technically, this doesn't have to be a pirate ship. This is just using a raft and building it, so this is technically like a raft base. But I designed it as a pirate ship. It's really fun to do it that way, but there's many other ways you can do it other than the pirate ship. If you just want to make it functional, you can make it a giant box and fill it and make it full of all kinds of different stuff. But I think the pirate ship's cool, so I'm going to go with this as an example of what just cool looking bases you can make. This is the top floor. Of course, there's only a certain range, so I would have made the sails a lot bigger, but I couldn't do that. These are as big as I could make them. And you can only go far, like this is as long as I could make it as well. So there's some limitations on the size, but other than that, I mean, it looks pretty dope. I really like the pirate ship look. It kind of comes down here. You've got like the captain's quarters, this is where the beds and stuff are. And then down here is where I keep all the functional stuff, so it kind of looks cool on the outside, but on the inside, it's still functional. Not really that much room for storage though, even though I was going to put some storage in here, but I ended up putting the beds in here. You could probably cram some storage in here somewhere. But the pirate ship base, I think, is really cool. And probably the most practical, because a lot of the bases on here aren't going to be super practical, but this one, it's not based on like a creature, so it doesn't have like stamina problems or anything, and the boats are meant to be built on, so a raft base is actually pretty practical. Only problem with it is lead sickness will come out of the ocean and try and attack you and destroy you. I don't think they're on Ragnarok, so if you wanted to build this on Ragnarok, that'd be perfect, but on every other map, you need to be really careful on where lead sickness are, because they could destroy your build that took you hours. I'd be very sad if this pirate ship got destroyed. So you got to be careful about that. But other than that, could be pretty cool base. In at number 3 is the cliff platform bases. Now this is probably the most common out of all the ones on this list, and it's definitely the one that I'd recommend the most. Is It's actually like a useful base. But this is just a cliff platform that I spent like an hour on. I didn't really detail it that much. I was gonna go through and put a bunch of stuff, but that would take like a few hours because it's a really big platform I made up here. But you can see I have it up here, like the very top on Aberration. I'll show you this area where it's built at, because it's actually a really cool base spot. And it's all lit up with like white lights, so it looks really nice. But there's tons of different spots on Aberration and even other maps. You can build cliff platforms on any map, and it could look really cool. But like I said, you have tons of space, and you know, it's not like all the other ones on this list where it's usually on like a moving platform, so you can't, are kind of limited. This one, you're not really limited that much. You got the cliff platforms, you can build off the top of them. You can put rails on here. I put rails. You have to put these thin pillars too, or else it looks like they're floating. And you can also connect them. So these cliff platforms are like ascended. They snap together, as you can see. These two right here, they're snapped together. And then I used these triangle pieces to kind of connect them further, so it doesn't just look weird. I definitely recommend doing that, so that way, you know, they're all connected. It's more like a bridge, I guess. I don't know. They're bridging them together. And once you do that across all of them, the base looks really nice. Like, I think the way that this turned out, it looks really good. I honestly, it makes me want to go in my single player world and just ditch my base and go make a cliff platform base. And I forgot to do it here, but like, you can also, when you're making these like things, you can add inverted wood pieces, so that way it actually looks like it's part of it and not just floating right there. I forgot to do it on here, but this is a good example of what it will look like if you don't. It doesn't look terrible, but it looks better if you add stuff like this. And I did wood railings across the stone. I think the stone one looks the best. I also added some little docking stations here for like zeppelins, or just to jump off with a rock drake or something like that. But like I said, I think this is a really cool base idea. I would definitely recommend making cliff platforms quite a bit. They're pretty awesome. At number 4, we have the Paracer platform saddle base. This is one I would use more as like a starter base, because the Paracer platform saddle is pretty small. But as you can see, you can make a bigger thing out of this, and you could even make it wider too. Like I said, you could make it purely functional and make it bigger and have more space. This is one that I went for looks too as well. But like I said, I think I'd mainly use this as like a starter base to like find where you actually want to build, and then that way you can actually have a way to move. But this is the base here. I've got a ladder so you can come back, so anyone else can come back, or you can just ride it and go up that way. But this is the entrance from the back here. As you can see, I kind of made like the back half open and then the other half like a house, just to kind of change it up a little bit, so now all these builds are the same. You could do the same building style for like the Quetzal platform saddle, and you know, you can mix it up. I'm doing all kinds of different builds in this video here. Like I said, you got plenty of space for all the starter stuff. You got a smithy, you got this table where you can have a mortar and pestle, you can have a cooking pot, preserving bins, refining forges, plenty of storage. You can even make more storage as well. And then there's like a second floor. I'd say it's more like a loft, where you can come up here and there's the beds. And then you could also have maybe some storage boxes up here too if you really wanted to. I'd also keep like my shoulder pets and stuff up here too. Like, yeah, this is the Paracer base. I think it looks, I really like the look of it. It's pretty nice. And then of course you can kind of just hop on it and start moving around. And then you have your little mobile base here. Pretty small, but pretty fun. At number 5 is the cart base. Now this one is a very small base, even smaller than the Paracer. Definitely like a starter base, even more so than the Paracer. And you're also going to need the Bob's Tall Tale DLC for this one, which is why I'm also using the Frontier skins on this one, because you're going to need that DLC in order to use the cart. But the cart you can put on a bunch of different creatures. I put it on the Thyla because the Thyla is really quick, and it can run up walls and stuff with the cart. And you can also carry, you can use like an RG and pick up the Thyla, and then the cart comes with it. So, or at least it used to work like that. It should work like that still. But yeah, this is the thing. It's a little bit weird looking, but I thought it was kind of interesting. And it's more about what it looks like on the inside. And so I made it to where you come in the back here, and you basically got everything you could possibly need. Now the lighting is super weird in here, which is kind of annoying. But we have the glass so you can kind of see out. You got the smithy, mortar and pestle, campfire, all the starting stuff. I guess you don't really need a beer barrel, but I put it in here. You also got a water tank too, so when it rains you can get some water out of it. And then you got the tap there, so you'll be able to drink water. You got a huge set of storage. And then there's a staircase where back here, it's not letting me through. It's kind of weird, but anyway, back there's the bed. so that way you can sleep. And then as you can see, there's a ladder. I couldn't put ceilings right here, so instead I made it just one thing down, and then obviously I made it where you can come up here and there's just a little bit extra storage, so you can have tons of storage, even though how much storage you have is going to be reliant on how much weight your creature has. But whatever you put in the storage of like anything on the cart, it's going to weigh half of what it normally does. And it's not going to say that, but like when you're on your creature, it won't weigh as much. As you can see, nice little starter base, and then you can run around with that. I'd recommend doing it on the Thyla. I think that's probably the best one. Even though it is a super derpy, it's really fun. But you can also do it like on a Therizinosaurus or an Iguanodon. Iguanodon's a super early game team, so that would also be like my second choice, because the Thyla might be a little bit harder to get if you're starting out and you want to make one of these. But I think the cart base is pretty fun. At number 6, we have the Brontosaurus base, and this is a pretty solid one. Like, I feel like this one would actually be a pretty good size for a decent base. Obviously, like into late game, you're not gonna have that much room, but for like the mid game, I feel like this is enough space to where you can have almost everything you would need. And I'll show you the base here. Obviously, you can make it pretty big. You can just go all function and make it a lot bigger than this. But obviously I wanted to go for function and form as well. So in the front we have some water tanks here so that we got plenty of water. I made guardrails outside the entire base so you can walk around it. I also feel like it makes it look a little bit better than it just being like a giant box on the back. And then I have these so that way creatures can get in, even though it'd be kind of hard to get them in there. You could make stairways that go down. But this is the inside of a base, so we should have like everything you need. I even made areas where you could go down in here too, which you can do. You can actually go down a lot, so if you want to have like multiple floors just on the sides here, you can do that with the Bronto. Because like if I open this up, you can see the saddle's right there, so I'm kind of just going down there, but that is something you can do. I'll just leave that open for now. But anyway, I have the generator down there, so you don't have to see it. Then you've got everything you need, all the things here. I've even got a line of refrigerators. All the storage is up here too, so it's not taking room on the floor, and you can access it all from down here. And there's the storage on both sides, so plenty of room for storage, plenty of ceiling room too. And then there's where you can ride it, so you can just hop on and start riding the Bronto and controlling it right from inside there, so that makes it super easy. You even got the egg incubator, your smithy, fabricator, all that stuff. And then you want to go up to like the little loft area. It's gotta jump up a little bit. I think that industrial cooker's in the way a little bit. Well, this is just where I have like a little fireplace, got a table. I even got a little balcony here so you can kind of see out from the front. And then there's the bed so you can respawn. And I'll kind of fly outside here and show you what it looks like from the outside. You see pretty cool. You see the balcony there, and then I did a little bit with the roof so it wasn't just like an ordinary roof. And like I said, I think the Bronto, it has a lot of potential because Brontos are super easy to tame. I mean, they're literally just knockout tames. You can get them pretty early on. I mean, they're not like super early tame, but you know, they're not that hard. And once you do get it, you can make a platform saddle and start a base up pretty simply. Like, I don't know. If you want to do one of these bases, I feel like the Bronto would be the easiest one to actually go for, because some of these bigger creatures that have platform saddles are a lot harder to tame. So this is like the only big creature that's easy to tame, because the only other stuff is like the Titanosaur and Dreadnoughtus and the Titans, and all those are stupid hard, while this one in comparison is stupid easy. And you could make a really cool base on the back of it too with all kinds of stuff. You could even fit dinosaurs in here. Like, you could more design this just for storing dinos, and that would work too. Next up at number 7 is the Zeppelin base. So you're going to need Bob's Tall Tales in order to get the Zeppelin and to build it. But once you do have it, and you have the Zeppelin, it runs on gasoline, and as you can see, you can make pretty big structures out of the Zeppelin. You're just gonna have to build it like more up top here, because of course you have these parts down here. So you can have room, stuff built in the center area, which is just the platform that's already there, but you can build up. And then I just had 2 separate rooms right here, but you could have just one connected area. What I thought would even be cool is have this like center area be for dinos, so I didn't really make it like that. I just had it to where there's like benches and stuff, but you could clear this center area out, have this be your dino storage room, and then these 2 be rooms for other stuff. So gotta show you what I made here. Obviously this is like the whole way you come here. I think it's a really cool view, like right here when you come to actually drive it, but the upstairs is where all the stuff is. So to the right is just all functional stuff. I even got all the Bob's Telltale stuff, and I was able to cram most of it in here, as well as having storage on the top row, the generator and stuff all up there. fit nicely in their refrigerators at the end. And in this room is just for beds, and you know, you got your tables and fireplace and everything else. The lights are kind of glitchy on these two. They like turn yellow for some reason. Yeah, I don't know what that's about, but they do that. So as you can see, you got a decent amount of room on the Zeppelin, and it's pretty good. If you want a flying base on Aberration, this is the only way you could do it, because this is the only way to fly on Aberration is with the Zeppelin. But I mean, like I said, it would be pretty fun to have this on Aberration, because you could just fly around endlessly. As well as, I mean, it could be good on other maps too. The only problem is it's like stupid slow. It's basically like the hover skiff from Ark Survival Ascended, or sorry, Evolved, but like 50 times slower. So it's like, that's kind of the downside. But you could build this on other maps too, and I think it would work just fine. You'd just be a little bit slower, but you'd have your whole base on the back of it, so you know, can't really complain too much there. And you got a lot of room. You're gonna have a lot more room than, like, let's say the Quetzal, which we'll get to later in this video. So if you wanted something that's not super hard to tame, like some of the other massive flyers, and just wanted something easy, well, not easy to make, but reasonable to make, this one would be good. Or, like I said, the Quetzal, but this one is going to be a lot bigger than the Quetzal. You can build so much more on the back of this thing than you can a Quetzal platform saddle. In at number 8, we have underwater bases. Now, there's a bit of a problem with underwater bases, and it's kind of like a blood sacrifice in order to afford one of these things, because they're very expensive. Just for one compartment for a underwater base, you're going to need 360 metal, 100 or 180 crystal, 136 polymer. So I guess it's not as bad as I thought. Actually, it's kind of better than I thought it was, but if you want to have a big underwater base made out of tech too, you need element for all these pieces. It's going to cost a lot, because each one of these squares, it comes in like boxes. But anyway, you place the boxes in, and then it takes a while to actually make this. This base took me a little bit to kind of get set up, but they are pretty roomy. Each box has about four tiles in size, so they are pretty big. I guess it's maybe not as big as I thought, like expensive as I thought, but this is the base I set up here. One room, you got a tech replicator in here, you got some stuff you need. Here's a set of vaults so you can access all of your stuff in here. Currently nothing is in there, but you know, you get the point. And then you could kind of just make hallways around. You got to make sure it's lit up because it's hard to see. I just changed it today, and it's still kind of dark down here. I mean, it is underwater, so it is going to be kind of hard to see. But, you know, you can't have windows on each side. You can even have dinos inside here. And then there's the moon pools, too, which is how you get in and out of the water bases. And this is what it looks like on the outside. It's kind of hard to make these things look good. I mean, I don't know. It looks more like futuristic sci-fi type, which is the kind of look you're gonna go for when making one of these. Because if you're trying to make it look like a normal base, I mean, I don't really know what a normal underwater base would look like. There's not really much reference to go off of, and you can only really build in squares, so it's really just gonna look like this. So you're more worried about what the interior is gonna look like. And then, of course, the only way in is through these moon pools, and then you can kind of just make your way through, and you can just fill it with functional stuff is really all you can do. And then you have your water stuff outside where the moon pool is. So it's cool if you want like a futuristic tech base underwater, but you are sacrificing not having the ability to go on land, or, you know, it being kind of difficult to go because you have to leave the water each time. So you're trading that up, but it is kind of cool. Maybe like as a secondary base, if you want to have all your water dinos like have down there, then this would be a cool thing to have. At number 9, we have the Dreadnoughtus Platform Base. Now, this one is a little bit different. You'd think, since the Dreadnoughtus is like bigger than the Bronto, that you could build a bigger base on the back of it, but it's more limited. You can't build as far, and you can't build as high. This right here is about as big as you can make it. You can see it's not nearly as big as the Bronto platform saddle. So if you're just going for like size of the base, I'd definitely go with the Bronto over the Dreadnoughtus. But that's not what the Dreadnoughtus is really built for. The Dreadnoughtus is more of like a war creature. You know, it's meant for killing stuff. It does a ridiculous amount of damage, and it has like over 100,000 health. So obviously it's more of like a siege dino. And so that's kind of what I designed this base around. Of course, you could have just a normal base, but you're going to be using the Dreadnoughtus for like killing stuff and fighting Titans. If you're going to fight Titans, I definitely probably wouldn't build a base on the back of it, because the Titans are just going to wreck it. Maybe if you built it out of tech, but that would also be kind of grindy. So you can see I built that out of metal. It's more of a, you know, functional thing, where you got turrets. I got all the different turrets on each one. Of course, I'm not really a PvP player, so this one would just be more for killing dinos. Like, you got all kinds of turrets to kind of mess around with. And then you get the ladders, because there's like different platforms that kind of go down here. And then, of course, inside is the functional stuff. Like I said, there's not a ton of room for the Dreadnoughtus to build stuff, so your base is just going to be some of the more smaller things, the more essential things in here. Obviously, you got the bed, which I would have the bed down there. I forgot to place it, but I was going to put the beds down there in that little compartment. And then down in this compartment is the little generator room. So, since there is, like, these little gaps, I can't really fit. You can kind of fit stuff in here too. Have like either smaller rooms or have like segmented rooms, like I said, for the beds and for the generator. And then right here is the area to ride it. I have railings so you can still see if you were to drive it in first person, but you know. Like I said, more of a siege dino. The base is more designed for being durable and for killing stuff. And if you were to build a base on it, that's what I'd recommend, because of course that's what the Dreadnoughtus is designed for. And then, of course, we got our storage, too, and I put more storage on the roof as well, so you could have it at the very top here, which, if you're playing in PvE, which is what I do, and what I kind of designed all the things for, you shouldn't have to worry about your storage getting destroyed as long as it's super high up. But, like, stuff more down here is probably going to get hit if you're fighting, like, gigas and stuff like that. Overall, I think it's pretty cool, and like, mainly for, like, a siege kind of base. In at number 10 is the tree platform base. Now this is one that I think is also pretty practical, kind of like the cliff platforms, because you know, you actually got plenty of space. It's not super expensive. I mean, it is kind of expensive, but you could get it like mid to late game and have it be your main base, I think, pretty easily. And it's expandable too, as big as the Redwoods are. The only problem with it compared to the cliff platforms is they don't like snap together like cliff platforms do, so you're gonna have to like build bridges manually by yourself, and they're not gonna look the best. Especially like this one, you can tell this one's like kind of super janky, but it gets the job done. Just don't look underneath it. Now you could spend like tons of time, like it would take tons of time to get this right, but you could do it. You could make it look seamless. It would just take a while, because it's all kind of like on this grid here connected to the tree platforms. And you could build like walls on the side of it here. I have railings, but if you wanted to, you could build walls up and have like apartments where they're all built in. Also, you're in the Redwoods, so it is pretty dangerous here, but since you're in the trees, you're not really getting attacked by anything. The only thing that's in the trees are Thylas. You might get pounced on by a Thyla every now and then, but other than that, I think you should be good. And then, of course, if you build walls, then you won't have to worry about that. I think it's easiest, though, when you're in these, like, compact redwood areas, because then you could just have them, like, overlapping like this, and then have, what is it called? Stairs. I don't know why, I can't remember what a stair is called, but, you know, the stairs come up here like this, and that makes it super easy to connect them together, unlike with the bridges. So if you can find like a compact redwoods biome, I definitely recommend doing that, because building just stairs going like that is way easier than building like a bridge. But wherever you build, if you want to have like an expansive tree platform area, you're probably going to need to do this. And when it comes to actually getting on the tree platform, I have this one here, and then I got one underneath it where the stair kind of comes down to the bottom floor, and then this connects down to the main floor. And maybe you might even want to put a dino gate right here, just so wild dinos can't, you know, venture in and start attacking your stuff, because the Redwoods biome is pretty dangerous. But, okay, yeah, there's already a saber coming after me, but overall, this is a pretty good base design, and I think it's either this or the platform base are like the most practical, but I actually really like the look of the redwood tree base. It reminds me of like the Ewok village, and you can also build this in stone and metal as well if you want to do some other materials. Number 11 is the Plesiosaur saddle base. Now, I wouldn't really recommend most of these underwater ones, and by underwater I mean the Plesiosaur and the Mosasaur, because they're very glitchy. They haven't really messed with them since they added these saddles in like 2015. But you can make them, and it is a base. It's also really annoying to make, because the Plesiosaur is always moving, and like you try to go place something and then it moves last second and places it where you don't want to, so it's really frustrating building on this thing. But you can build a small little hut here. You could even make it just a little bit bigger if you wanted to. Like I said, I always go for a little bit of looks and function. I got benches on here, which I actually forgot to add on the Mosasaur base. But you want to have benches, that way if you have other people riding with you, they need to ride on this or they need to sit on the bench before you go underwater, because when you go underwater, you're just going to get left behind, unless you're sitting on a bench or a chair. But I have the entrance to the little base back here, and there's enough room for, you know, all the basic stuff. You got your smithy, the chemistry bench, the forge, uh, cooking pots, and everything. Got tons of storage room. Even got fridges up there, and then the bed and the generator are up on the top there, so you can use the ladder or you can swim up there when you're underwater. So I guess we can just take this thing underwater for a little second. It's like I said, obviously very glitchy. And then once you go down here, it's going to be pretty dark unless you have the miner's helmet on, which I showed earlier, which I don't have one on me currently, so we're not seeing that. But you know, you'll be able to swim around here. Obviously you want some scuba or something as well. But you know what, if you want an underwater base or a mobile underwater base that's super glitchy, then you know this one might work for you. It does look kind of cool though, having a little like houseboat that you can move and then go underwater if you really want to. But you know, whatever. In at number 12 is the Ice Titan base. Now, if you want to do this, I'd recommend having the setting on that keeps creatures from dying, or these raid dinos from dying that normally only last 24 hours. If you are playing like on official and you have that, I wouldn't recommend building a base on the back of here. I mean, you could, but it's going to be gone in a day. If you wanted to keep it, then you'd need to have that setting on. But this is the base I built. Thing is, you can make a pretty wide base on the Ice Titan, but you can't make it that tall. You can only make it like 3 tiles tall. That's as far as you could go, and I can't really build anything on top of this either to make like a roof, so it has to be flat there. So you can see I made like one main structure with like the roofs coming off the side, and then I got railings coming all around the sides. But like I said, you can't make it that tall. So in here, there's plenty of room though. Even though you can't make it tall, you can make it super wide. So you have plenty of room for storage. You got all the storage you can need. Back there is the generator and the beds. This is where you'd actually get onto the Ice Titans, that gap right there. Here's all of the like basic stuff you need for your base. I got some benches here if you other people which want to sit down, in a fireplace, and also a ton of room, so I don't really have much stuff in here other than like a fridge and stuff. But if you have some of the Bulb's Tall Tale DLC, you can also build stuff from there. On this side there's water tanks too, so that way you can have water. But you know, we can also get on the Ice Titan and move around on here. It's like the most mobile of the Titans, so I don't think it'd be the best to build the base on. I think the Desert Titan would probably be the best, but if you wanted something that you could use for fighting stuff, you know, the Titan is the best for like killing creatures. I think it's like the strongest out of all of them, so if you wanted that perk of the Ice Titan for your base, then that'd be a good reason to build a base on the back of one. And number 13 is an Obelisk Base. You can actually build on the obelisks with the cliff platforms. So I guess this is technically like a cliff platform base, which you already went over, but this one's a little different because it's building on the obelisk, which I don't think most people have done. Even though you can do it, I don't know if you can do it on official. I'd assume you can, but you can just connect all the platforms, and then you can even put them in the center here, so you can just have a giant flat platform. You are gonna have this thing in the way, even though if you did build it like lower down, you wouldn't have that issue. So maybe I should probably just done that, but I didn't. Even got plenty of room for creatures. I mean, you can expand it out. You don't even have to have it like uneven like that. I just thought it kind of looked nice having like different levels. But I mean, you could make it like go down to different levels, so that you could have multiple different floors. You can have it go all the way around, connecting. As you can see, it kind of goes out here, and then you could even have it go out further if you wanted to, because they all snap together. And then all you need to do is just fill up the holes with the triangle pieces. And then I put railings on the edges too, and then have these little like quarter walls to, you know, fill that up so it's not just like flat where the triangles are. That's pretty much all I did there. And of course you could build even like bases or houses inside of here. Like this building in the obelisk would actually give you tons of room if you did it right. It would be expensive, especially if you're building the platforms out of metal. If you wanted to make it cheaper, you could just make it out of wood, have wood platforms, and then that would be so much easier to do. But, you know, if you want a just completely unique base that most people haven't made, then an obelisk base would be pretty fun to do. At number 14 is the Titanosaur base. Now this one, I think, probably, so far out of all the ones we've gone on the list so far, is probably the best. Now obviously it's kind of hard to tame a Titanosaur, but if you do have one and you have raid dino feeding on, so that way you can keep it forever, this would honestly make a really great base, and you have so much room to work with. Of course, I made it like kind of like have these like towers on the sides. You could even make it just a giant box, and then you'd have so much room, more than this. I even had enough room to put a full greenhouse. I didn't put plants in there, but you know, it's kind of just to show the idea that you even have room for stuff like that. So giant greenhouse on the side. We got the big towers. This is like the entrance in the front where you can, you know, actually ride the Titanosaur there. And then this whole bottom area I have is just dino storage, so you can have tons of dinos up here. You probably have to cryopod them up, but you could even make a stairway that goes down, so that way you can get dinos on there. You might like put it up against a cliff so they can actually get on, but once they do get on, you could fit dinos through dino gates on here. You could even make the platform flat if you wanted to and have bigger dinosaurs if you want that. But I think this is pretty good just to have some dino storage. And then you can go up the towers like through here, which is where I'd put the beds, and then you can come up the stairs, which is where all your functional stuff is. I even put some of the Bob's Tall Tale DLCs and stuff here because there's just so much room, so you might as well just have it, you know. But you got all the stuff you kind of need. You can't put industrial forges on here, which kind of sucks, so you have to put regular forges. There's plenty of room for storage, and the Titanosaur has a decent amount of weight, so you should be able to hold it. Actually, I kind of trying to look and check to see how much it has, if it let me on it. Yeah, you got plenty of weight when it comes to carrying stuff. Like, obviously, if you have like a ton of different resources, it might get overburdened. Like if you actually just have like thousands upon thousands of metal, but like most of the time, for a mobile base, like it should be enough weight for, you know, having all your resources. Because a lot of these other creatures on this list, they're limited on their weight, and so that means you're not going to be able to really hold much in your base. But with the Titanosaur, that problem's fixed. The room, I guarantee this one has the most room on a platform saddle. The only one that might be competition is the Desert Titan, but I haven't built that one yet. That one's later in the video, but for this, I mean, it's kind of perfect. And then when it comes to like, it can defend itself really well. Obviously, it's really strong. You're not gonna really get killed by anything on the Titanosaur, at least in PvE. Nothing's really gonna be killing you, so you don't have to worry about that either. So the Titanosaur makes for a fantastic mobile base. If you really do want to have just a walking base, then this is what I'd recommend to go for. And in number 15 is the Shastasaurus Submarine Saddle. Now, I know nobody uses the Shastasaurus, but if you want a submarine base, this is the only way to do it. Or I guess a mobile submarine base. Well, I guess I don't know what else what a submarine would be. But you kind of have a confined space here. You're not really going to be able to like expand outside of this spot. I mean, you can build structures in here, so you could have like a story. So you could make this super compact. You're just gonna have to make everything really compact. You don't have that much space to work with, especially if you want to have like room for dino storage. Like you just basically have to have this area, and then this area you could just fill with all your functional pieces. You do have enough room for storage and stuff. Like there is room to have stuff, but it's gonna be a really tight base, and right, it might be kind of difficult. It does have a decent amount of weight though, so you don't have to worry about that. But you do have to worry about it because, you know, stuff weighs a lot. But you are in the ocean, so you don't have to worry about getting constantly attacked by megalodons, which kind of sucks. And the submarine saddle is a little bit glitchy, but, you know, like I said, if you want a submarine base, this is how you're going to have to do it. It's the only really way to do it. And it's cool that it is an option in the game, even though most people don't use it. I just kind of wish, you know, I could expand it a little bit more, but you can't really do that with here. You're pretty confined with this kind of base idea. And this would be like a really small base. This wouldn't be a main base like the Titanosaur base would, or anything like that. This is just a super small one. I'm not going to say beginner base because this saddle unlock is like level 100, so it's not really early game. It's really just like if you want a submarine base, and that's the only reason you'd even do this. At number 16 is a train base. This one's a pretty unique one, but it's also going to be very expensive if you want to have a train that goes around the entire map, which I assume that's what you'd want to do if you were doing a train base. But it could be pretty awesome. I think you can have up to 5 carts in total, so that's what I have, and each cart I've designed so that way it's like a different use for each one. So this first one is the greenhouse, the second one is just all my construction stuff. This one is purely for storage. This is like the bed and just, you know, more of like a decorative one, and this last one is for dino things. So I'll kind of show you all here. You can connect each path with these little quarter ceilings, And so this first one is a greenhouse. I just had extra, like I didn't know what to do this last one, so I just made it a greenhouse. And I have to walk over them. But you can connect these right upside right here with the ceilings, the quarter ceilings. So I definitely recommend doing that. This is the functional one. I have it open. You can design it however you want, and you can remember you can also only keep it at 3 walls tall or tiles tall. So you got the forges, literally pretty much everything you need in here. You can also maybe fit an industrial grinder. I didn't put it on here because it's really big, but you could make room for that. And then, as you can see, this is my storage room. You can also make it a little bit bigger. I'll show you on the outside, but as you can see, you can make pretty big rooms. Which how you do it is you use these quarter ceilings on the very outside here. And then, like, if you do it on this corner, it'll say, like, it's too far away. So I just did it, like, one block was shaved off on each side. So it's just kind of like the bulges on the side. And then I got the ramps coming into the ceiling. So it kind of comes in nicely. Just gives you a bunch of extra room so that we got tons of storage in here and you still got room to move around. I also got the fridges and all that. And then this last, or not this last one, but this one is for decorative stuff. So, the fireplace, you got the piano and all that stuff. Also forgot to mention you need Bob's Tall Tales DLC to make the train, and that's also why I'm using the Frontier skins on this one. But you come up here, and then this is where the bed and stuff is. I was going to put a generator here, but I kind of forgot, and I'm already recording, so it's too late for that. No generator, no lights, but I would normally have that on. This last one is a dino pen, so you have the gate here. You can put quarter stairs at the end, so that way you can kind of ramp them in here. You could also just throw them in with a cryopod. And then, I got their food, and I think it's a nice looking dino pen. But that's what I did. Like I said, you could do so much with these. Obviously, it's kind of limited on the space, but at the same time, you got a lot of space, like with each cart. I feel like just making each cart its own thing is a good way of doing it, like how I did. Each cart has its own function, and that way you've got pretty much everything you need. And this is going to be good because you don't have to really worry about weight or anything. You can kind of just use the train to carry as much as you can, which is pretty awesome. You don't have to worry about storage, which for a lot of bases on here, that is a problem. So that's a good one for this one. It's a mobile base where you don't have to worry about weight at all because the train can pull all of it, and you can have plenty of stuff, especially in the storage cart. The 16th base idea is the Forest Titan base. This one has a platform saddle on its back, and you basically are like making a backpack base. But this thing is absolutely massive. Kind of reminds me of like Emmett from the Lego Movie, where he's got like the brick on the back. That's what this thing looks like. And I guess it's more of just a giant rectangle, and then it's got the platforms on top. You got enough room for a tech replicator. I think you pretty much have enough room for like everything you could possibly need on a mobile base. At least that'll let you build there. Obviously, I think the Titanosaur would be better just because it's not as like weird of a setup. This one is more vertical of a base. But if that's what you want, then this one could be good. Also, you can build out to here, but he's got his chest covering it up. So I just have this area where you can kind of just like view, I guess, from there. But anyway, you can't have the stairway go through because underneath this is just the platform saddle. So in order to make it go down, I have stairs that go on the outside, and then as you can see, the platform saddle is right there. It continues all the way down to the bottom, and then I got a ladder going down. So if someone is already riding it, you can just get on from the ladder and start climbing up that way. But it's going to start from the top, I guess, which is just the tech replicator and the generator. Obviously, I mean, you don't have to have the tech replicator and stuff on here, but since it is like a late game dino, assume you might have tech. This room, I only put the industrial grinder in. I didn't put a ton in these rooms because it already took me a really long time to build this, even though it doesn't really look like it. This is the room with all of your crafting stuff, and this is where you go to ride the Forest Titan, which I actually haven't ridden around on it since I built this base. But, like I said, it's like a little backpack on the Forest Titan, so kind of fun that way. Alright, let me get to a stopping point here. Anyway, you get off. Okay, you probably shouldn't get off while you're moving, but if you get off while you're stopped, you'll come back out right there. You need to make sure to leave a hole for it so you don't get stuck. But anyway, down to the next floor, we have to take the stairs because, like I said, you can't go through the platform saddle. And then going in here, this is just a like decorative room, I guess. I got a window so that way you can see his hindquarters, even though you can't really see through the windows. They look like someone farted on them or something, and they're just fogged up indefinitely because the greenhouse windows, they're not the best. Like, Obviously, if it's the Frontier skins, I'd recommend doing those if you want windows, but if you don't, greenhouse walls are a great alternative. But anyway, the point is, there's beds down here too. Like I said, there's not really much in these rooms because I don't want that much room. And in the bottom, I have all my storage, and I got the fridges too. And then this is where you can get out, and then, you know, do that. This is probably one of the most unique of the platform saddle bases because, like I said, it's more of a vertical base than just a giant, like, flat slab where it's just like a square shape almost. That's how a lot of the platform saddles are. They're just kind of squarish, so you gotta make it around this one. But this one is very different, and you can't really build that high either, like technically speaking, because it starts here, and if you just go up, then you only have that much room, which is a lot more than other saddles. But for the Forest Titan, I feel like you should be able to go up higher. So, like I said, most of your room is gonna be down underneath the saddles. You can see could go down like 8 tiles underneath it. Well, you can actually keep going if you really wanted to. You can make it go down to the floor, but I didn't want it to like start clipping in. But you can go even farther down. I just didn't want to go too far down. But that is the Forest Titan base. And at number 18 is the Oasisaur. This is actually a decent one for a base spot. You have a pretty good amount of room, but you don't have a ton. I think you honestly have more room on the Titanosaur, even though they're around the same size. Even though every time I look at the Oasisaur, it doesn't really seem like it's that big, but it is around like the exact same size as the Titanosaur. Like I said, you don't really have as much room. These areas like this, all these edges, you can't build on. Like, I've basically built out as far as you can, and you can only build like in like kind of this triangle shape, which is a very odd shape to kind of build in. So I kind of tried to build buildings around it. So I have like 3 smaller buildings, so it's not just like a really weird shape to building. It's kind of just 3 rectangles, each with their own functions, and I guess we'll go over all of them. This first one, this right wing area, is just storage for, you know, foods and everything else you might need. And then this main area is just all your crafting stations, stuff like that. I didn't put the Bob's Tall Tale stuff in here really, even though you would have that DLC in order to use the Oasisaur. You need that DLC, the Bob's Tall Tales one, in order to tame it. So, you know, if you don't have that DLC, yeah, you're not going to be able to tame this one, unfortunately. And then this last area is like a storage, or dino storage. So, you know, got all my dinos in here. And, you know, this one, you could really do whatever you want on here. Of course, you could just make it one giant building so you have more room if you really want to. But you also have to keep in mind that the Oasisaur grows resources on its back, and they're going to be like sticking through your buildings. Because a lot of times there's trees coming through, and they're still going to grow there, and they're going to take up room. But you can easily just come over and then grab them out of this thing, and then you pull them all over, and then they're gone. So it's not that hard to get rid of them, but you will have trees growing through occasionally. Also, the Oasisaur is really annoying to try and feed because you have to feed it potted plants. It is possible, you just have to keep it in mind. And this thing also flies too. Of course, if you don't know how the Oasisaur works, it can fly, which is pretty awesome. So you have a flying base. So that would be a reason to use it over the Titanosaur, is maybe you don't really have as much room, but you can fly around, and the flying's pretty solid. You don't have nearly as much weight as the Titanosaur, though. This one only has 2,500, so that's probably going to be a problem for you. You're going to have to work around that, the weight. So Titanosaur is probably better weight-wise, but you can fly on this thing, and that alone is pretty cool, just having a flying base that is this big. There's only one other creature on this list that can fly that's this big. There's a few flyers on here, I should say, but this is the biggest flyer, other than the Desert Titan, which I've been alluding to. But yeah, Oasisaur, honestly, I think it looks pretty dope. Only problem is your weight, but a lot of the creatures on this list have that problem. But this one's pretty big, so it being big and not having that much weight, I feel like is kind of a problem. But anyway, I've been yapping a lot about this one, even though I do think it is kind of cool. That's the Oasisaur. And at number 19, we have the Quetzal. This one is probably one of the classic bases from, you know, because you could have done this a really long time ago. It's going to have to be pretty small. You're not going to be able to make anything huge. Like, of course, you could just make this a big box, and that would honestly give you a ton more room. If you don't want to make it just look like a house, I'd probably recommend just building it as a box. That's just going to give you a lot more room to work with. Right now, it's just really small, super compact. This is more of like a mid-game base. Like, maybe try and get a Quetzal as soon as you can, then build a platform saddle for it, and then you'll have a small little mobile base that you can move around on. And you need to have a little room for the area where you can ride it on. And of course, you are going to have limited stamina, but these things actually have a decent amount of weight. You could get it to more than what the Oasisaur had. And this thing's obviously a lot smaller than the Oasisaur, so weight, I don't think it'll be too much of an issue for you. Obviously, it is going to be an issue for all of these creatures, and it will for the Quetzal, but not as much for the Quetzal, because the Quetzal, you can upgrade weight on it and get it really high. And they also just have a really good weight stat in general. And you can fly, too. It's one of the few flyers on here. And compared to all the other flying things on this list, I'd say this is the easiest one to get. It's still not easy to get, but easier than everything else. Everything else is pretty hard to get, except for maybe the Zeppelin. But the Oasisaur and the Desert Titan are both going to be pretty difficult for you to try and tame up. But this one's not that hard, and you can make like a nice little small house on it. And at number 20, the one I've been hinting at like the entire video, is the Desert Titan. Now, I don't think this one is the best for it, but it is one of the better ones. I think the Titanosaur is probably still the best when it comes to platform saddle wise, because you just have so much room and you've got a pretty good amount of weight and all that, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. But the Desert Titan, I mean, it can fly. I think the Desert Titan is probably better than the Oasisaur. And when it comes to the weight, you got 9,000, so but that's actually only level 1 that I spawned in. So it might be different. I spawned enough. I don't know if it'd be that different, actually. So this is the base I built. I made it as like a little fort, so you could just make this a giant rectangle, and then you could have multiple floors, and you'd have plenty of room for pretty much everything you need. I just made it a fort because I thought that'd be kind of cooler and different from what else the other stuff I made. I guess I also kind of made the Titanosaur like a fort, but this one's a little bit different. It's open in the center, which you got all the room for dinos, and then this room back here is for all the stuff you'd need in a base. Generators back there, and the beds are in this little corner over there. And then yeah, that's it pretty much. And then here's where you can actually go to ride the Desert Titan, which obviously the main point you'd want to build a base on the Desert Titan for is the fact it can fly around. It never even has to land. It does have stamina, but like I said, you don't land, you just kind of stop in midair, and then it gains stamina that way. So it's a base that's literally always in the air, and you never have to worry about hitting the ground. You also don't have to worry about dying, because what's going to kill you, I mean, at least on PvE, pretty much nothing can kill you on here. You do need to have the raid dino feeding turned on, so that way it doesn't die from starvation, but if you have that on, you're pretty much never going to die on this thing, and you'll have a nice flying base where you can just move around the whole map, and you got plenty of room to work with and build whatever you want pretty much. So the Desert Titan base, it's a pretty solid option, and a pretty fun one too. Having a flying sky fortress is pretty dope. That's going to be it for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe. This one was a little bit different. It was all live commentary, which I don't normally do. Usually I do the entire video like a voiceover, but most of this was all just live commentary from the video. So if you guys did enjoy that kind of style, make sure to let me know. Let me know if you want to see more kind of videos like this in the future. But anyway, thanks for watching, and bye.